A lot of people find curves, especially the color curves, to be super overwhelming and overcomplicated. And we'll go over heaps of examples from pros. I think that's the best way to learn, to really see what your options are, what is possible, how many different directions, how many different approaches, how many different styles, and which a technique with these curves you might choose to go with. And often people say they've been editing for 10, 15 years and they just kick themselves that they didn't understand this stuff earlier. Okay, so we're focusing on the red, green, and blue channel. Red, green, and blue. This is the RGB channel. So this channel here is actually red, green, and blue all combined into one channel. So this is the same as moving these red, green, and blue channels, but you're just moving them all at once. Red, green, and blue. Why are they red, green, and blue? Because digital color, we use red, green, and blue to create any color. These are our main colors that we can mix, and we can blend colors and create any color with just 3 colors. You can go anywhere in the color wheel. We have opposite colors, so you can see green and purple, magenta. We have blue and yellow, and we have red and cyan. And you just really want to look at that color wheel to really help you understand how to mix colors. It's really important later on when you are creating styles. Okay, so there's a bit more to it. We're not just adding red, and we're not just adding this bluey cyan. It's about where in your image you are putting it. We have a box here. We have this axis and we have the Y axis. What's the difference here? So I like to explain it like this is our dark pixels over on the right for the bottom axis. So over here, dark pixels in our image, we have dark pixels. We can click here, and wherever we hover on our image, a dot will represent where that is. So bright areas of the image were up at the top right, dark areas were down the bottom left. We can click, and now it will plot points along our curve. So say if we click, we just plotted this point. Now because this bottom axis is about which pixels are dark and which pixels are bright, we can choose to put color in the bright pixels, or we can choose to put color in the dark pixels. We can do something like that. This y-axis is about adding in color, so up, adding in that color, down, removing that color, and you're introducing the opposite color in the color wheel. Okay, those two axes lets us just put any color in any brightness of our image. So super essential for creating styles. And then this curve is just all 3 of these combined into one. Now when we move this curve, we get no color shift, because if you move all the colors the same, there is no color shift because it's all balanced. You're getting the exact same ratio of colors move throughout your image, so it just affects brightness. Okay, so dark pixels, bright pixels, brightening, darkening. Along the curve here is just which pixels do we want to work with. Do we want to brighten or darken bright pixels? And then this one, exactly the same, it's just a different method of working with sliders. So super powerful and super essential to create any style we want. Okay, so we're going to go over lots of examples because I think that's the best way to learn. You'll see that there's so many different ways directions you can take these curves. And I've been lucky enough to see so many different perspectives, different strategies, different methods. Most photographers are sort of doing one technique, one direction, one method to their editing their whole career most of the time. Learn what is possible with these curves. Okay, so these curves, for example, we have more blue in the midtones, so we're giving off these really cool blues. This is from Yang. So for this style, we are getting way more blues throughout the image, so if you're doing the outdoors, mountains, you might want to enhance that cold feeling. So the blues in the mids are really helping this style come together. Curves on and off. You can see, those blues, there's a lot more pushing those blues into the mid-tones. So down here, mid-tones. So a lot of the image. And here's an example of doing the complete opposite. So red, green, and blue. So we have less blue in the mid tones for this image, okay? You can see that the red and green are pushed in more. There is less blue in the midtones, so it's going to give a much warmer look throughout the midtones, pretty much your whole image for this particular style. We have another one, so this is Kyle's, really talented photographer. Less blues in the mids, so we're going to get a warmth throughout the mids. And yet another one, we have less blue in the mids. We're going to get this warmth throughout the image. And then here's another one of Yang's with blue in the mids, really helping the environment he's shooting in. He shoots a lot of outdoor mountain stuff, but it's not limited to warm or cold. You could also be more green in the mids. So this is Luke's. He's got a bit more green than every other color in the mids and highlights. So he gets this greenish cast, and here's one from Ricardo, so he is getting more blue in the highlights. So it's not just about the midtones, it is also the highlights. So he's got a lot more blue that really gives off those cool blues. We have another one of his here. You can see there is more blue in the highlights, really helping his style. He also shoots a lot of cold epic landscapes, has a very blue style to his Instagram. He's also a guest editor in the course. Another awesome guest editor, Kiara. So it's not just about putting a bit of blue in the highlights or a bit of blue in the shadows. You could do that for both. So we both have more blue in the shadows, blacks, and we have more blue in the highlights. Just a little bit. Okay, so you've got the red channel. You can see there's more blue in the shadowy blacks and more blue in the highlights. She has a very blue, smooth style, which I really like. And then we have another guest editor, blue through the mids and highlights. So you can really, so a lot more blue down here, a lot more blue in the highlights. So there's a lot of placement and control you can see in these images. And you also don't even have to choose shadow, midtones, or highlights. You could just add blue into your entire image, like this one here. So if we were to reset channel, bring it back, there is way more blue in the entire image, shadow, and by that I mean shadows, midtones, and highlight. You don't have to segment it, shadows, midtones, highlights. And the same for this image by Dean, way less blue in the whole image. So he is getting a lot of warmth throughout the whole image, shadows, midtones, highlights, by having such a drop all down here of the blue curve. And same by Josh Ball. So green, red, and then watch the blue. We're just adding in so much warmth throughout the entire image. So not shadows, midtones, highlights, just the whole image. And one more example of the whole image is this one here. So reset. We're really targeting a lot of the image here. And the next few examples are just really subtle changes. So we can reset channel. You can see that this tiny change to the blue curve here adds in a bit of color, and you don't have to do these massive S curves like these previous ones. There are times you can do very subtle moves that still make a big impact to your images. So here's another, just one channel, the green channel, pretty small movement, reset channel, still plays an important role. So we've done a lot of tutorials on him. He's a really great editor. And the interesting thing about his work, just one channel, the green channel, pretty small movement, reset channel, still plays an important role. So we've done a lot of tutorials on him. He's a really great editor. And the interesting thing about his work is you can see, say, from this image, he's really bringing out the warmth here. So reset channel, he's working with the blues. He's trying to bring out more warmth in this image. So he's cooling off the highlights because he's really trying to go for warm tones in this image. So you can see how he's got lots of warmth in the highlights. I'll talk a bit more about balance and colors later on, but here he's just trying to balance, make sure the image doesn't get too warm. So maybe a bit of blue in the highlights. What I'm trying to get at is that his images are always edited kind of differently. So we've got blue in the shadows. You might not see it super well, but reset. The shadows are a bit warm. Let's bring in some blue. The shadows there. And then here's another one here, which is great. and he is adding in a bit more green than all the other colors in this one. So point is, he's a photographer that edits photos individually. Some people will have the same curves for their whole style and it makes their feed look pretty consistent. He's kind of editing each image the way he thinks that image should be edited. If he's got greens, he's trying to bring out the greens or the cooler tones. Then if he's got blue tones, he's really focusing on those blue tones. I did a lot of tutorials on his style, and for that reason it made it very hard to replicate his edits, but his edits are great, so it really pays off. So a lot of people complain about their skin tones, how like it seems like a big mystery, skin tones, especially from beginner photographers. They haven't put in the work to learn the curves, and the curves let you really control skin tones. So just this little quick example here, if we reset channel and let's bring it back, we are changing the skin tone, so we're pulling out green, so we are getting more of this purple tone, and that is helping our skin tones. So we look a little green and we can target skin tones. So again, over this brightness, this is where the skin tones are, and we can really fine tune and target what our skin tones need by using the curves. So, and you can get very precise on the exact color you want to add to your skin tones, because HSL is quite limiting. Like, you can change your oranges a bit, but you can't add green to your oranges, for example. It's a little confusing and a bit advanced, but yeah. So when you get better at the curves, you'll start using tactics like removing colors from the curves. So let me explain. Like, most people think of the curves as adding in color to your image. There are so many tools in Lightroom. We have warmth, we have split toning, these other tools that are adding in colors. You can actually use the curves more to subtract colors, okay? So lots of warmth in the shadows, but then we can subtract that with the curves and start to remove colors, and a lot of people forget about that. And watching all the guest editors, this is a really common thing I see, and people just don't tend to think in terms of subtracting colors. They kind of just think of adding colors, but this is a really common technique and thought process I use, and what I see the guest editors doing all the time. So here's an example from a past YouTube tutorial. We're adding in a lot of warmth here in the shadows. So this is 18 warmth, so that's quite a bit, and we've lifted the warmth all the way up to almost 10,000, which is a lot. So let's look at the curves. You can see that there is slightly more blue in the highlight. So this is pushing out those warm colors, and you can see there's a tiny bit less red in the mids here and here, and that is introducing this cooler blue. So with the less reds and more blues up here and more blues down in the shadows, you can see how many more blues there are down in the shadows. We're removing that warmth from other tools. So there's a lot of interwoven factors going on when you start using curves with other tools and you actually understand these techniques. That's when you start unlocking, really trying to create whatever style it is you want to recreate. Here's another one where you look at the curves, you can see that there is way more blue in this curve, but the image isn't that blue. It actually looks kind of warm. I'd maybe warm it up a bit more. Maybe it does look a tiny bit blue. Maybe do something like that. But we've got so much warmth down here in the shadows, so much warmth in the highlights. We are using this blue curve to remove blues and create balance in your image. And just a guest editor in the course, Jolanda, does this. There is a lot of blue in the curves here compared to the other colors. However, her image is very warm because we have lots of warmth in temperature and some warmth in the shadows. So really important to understand that. Okay, let's talk about split toning a little bit. So there are some really good edits, not many though, but some people like Kelly Taylor doesn't use the color curves. She uses split toning to get her warm colors, But someone like Marcella, I really like her style. She uses both curves and split toning to get her warm styles. So the difference between curves and split toning is just curves is way more precise. You can add color wherever you want. Split toning, you're adding it to a very large amount of the image. We do have this ability of midtones, but it's still basically the whole image, unlike curves. Curves is way more precise for adding and, as we just went over, removing colors, which is just as important. So some curves look pretty overwhelming and kind of messy, but then mixed with all these other tools and you understand how each tool affects each other, they start to make a lot of sense. Okay, so one of the biggest mistakes I see people using or don't understand about the curves is that they think it's all about color. Just because they're called the individual color channels, red, green, and blue, and they do a lot to color, you just mess with these curves a little bit and it adds in a lot of color. Very, very tedious to work with in terms of color, but they're almost used just as much for contrast and not color. And this is what a lot of people are just like doing 10 years of editing and they just have never thought of this approach. Color curves, as we went over, this is all the color curves in one curve, and this affects exposure. Well, the color curves do that as well, you just don't notice it as much, okay? It's more color sensitive, and the reason you don't notice the contrast change is because it's only a third as powerful in terms of contrast, because there's 3 channels. 33%, 33 equals 100%. This is 100% because this is all 3. It's only a third as strong as this one because it has all 3 of the channels in one. So using these curves, this one for example, these curves are not doing anything to color, but they're very important for the style because it adds in contrast. Okay, so we're adding in contrast here. We reset. There is no color changes in this image, but those curves are very important. Another one here. Again, no color change, just contrast change. Guest editor image, a little bit of color change, but it's mostly for contrast. Like we don't have a big curve here. Reset. Most of the contrast is coming from these color channels, okay? And another guest editor, Josh Ball. Not a big curve here. This will not do much in terms of contrast. Reset. You know, you could maybe think it's got nothing applied. We come back. So most of the contrast is coming from these color channels, which are way more important, and you'll really see that when you look at all these styles, how important that S-curve is and the color channels for placing colors, getting precise colors, and removing colors exactly where you want in your image. You'll really see that when you look at all these different styles, all these different perspectives, all these different ways people are adding or removing colors to get their styles. Okay, so someone commented, why do an S-curve in the color channels? Why not just push a little bit of color in? Because so many styles need this S-curve. Just like targeting brightness, we need an S-curve to target color. Like we need an S-curve to be able to place colors exactly where we want. If we don't have an S-curve, if we don't have plots, we're just adding a lot of color to the whole image. We need shape, we need plot points, maybe like an S-curve to start placing these colors. But just like earlier in the video, how we went over different examples, you can just do one plot on your color curves and affect a lot of your image. You don't have to do S-curves. There's great styles that don't do that. So yeah, I personally just love seeing how awesome photographers get their styles. So that's why I invited and teamed up and paid them to share their raw images, their settings, their adjustments, and them personally share exactly how they get those styles all in one place, so we can see lots of different approaches and styles. Because there is no right way, just the way you want to do it. And we've just been condensing a crazy amount of talented photographers' processes into one place where we can just download and follow along, and nothing is hidden from us. I wanted people to learn how I learn. So that's why I invited all these amazing photographers to one place with a common goal of just breaking down color themes. And you'll be surprised how much learning Lightroom helps you when you're shooting, knowing how colors will register in Lightroom. But that's it for this one. Look at a lot of different styles and how they're editing, and this will let you, if you don't know what style you want, to be able to pick which style you want, which one you're leaning towards, or take bits and pieces from other people's style until you develop your own. Understanding all this will let you be able to look at an image on Instagram and start to get the results you want in your head. If you want access to all the guest editors in the course and learn everything in a really systematized way that I've learned over the last 8 years, diving deep into color and editing, I've honestly done my absolute best to synthesize all this information in a streamlined way. What I wish I knew, and then I'm probably the only person in the world that has been able to have so many insights on all these different perspectives of editing and had so many years to study them and then condense it into a really streamlined curriculum for you. And a lot of people have said that this is the editing Bible. This is way more valuable to them than any piece of camera equipment. And often people say they've been editing for 10-15 years and they just kick themselves that they didn't understand this stuff earlier. So links down in the description, just come over, you can read the testimonial, see if it's answering the questions you struggle with your editing. Otherwise, yeah, leave a comment down below what's helped you about this video, and catch you in the next one.